The Dodgers now back-to-back World Series champions, the first to do it since the late 90s New York Yankees. Dave Roberts and company going out and taking in, I'd assume, the sunshine over on the east side of town. It's always kind of different weather patterns, but either way, enough inside Los Angeles baseball jokes. You get a look at this team, the super roster put together by the Los Angeles Dodgers, who won in 7 games. And again, I know so much the focus for a lot of people is on the end result of this, right? The Dodgers, with the highest payroll in baseball, go back-to-back. They win. You saw all the pitching prowess on that. Shohei Ohtani, the two-way star. And this was a series that, by all accounts, I thought going into the weekend, making my Dodgers in 7 pick felt very risky. This just seems to be a sport that, because of how it's set up, is so averse to that wire-to-wire number one or dynasties, that I think you kind of take this and enjoy it and understand that no amount of money can fix how random baseball can be at times.
I thought it was an excellent postseason all the way around. And then to get a 7-game World Series and go to extra innings in Game 7, it's like Game 7 or the deciding game in hockey playoffs, where you go overtime hockey. There's nothing better. Or overtime baseball in Game 7 of the World Series. You can't ask for anything better. And different heroes stepping up in different types of plays. It was absolutely amazing. I want to know, you live in L.A., how soon after the game ended did fireworks start by your house?
Can I tell you, I was so mad. So I was flying back into town that night. I had just called the Arizona State at Iowa State game. So I'm flying back through Denver from Des Moines, and I land, and it's still in the normal inning count here. It gets to extras by the time I'm almost home, and I watched the last inning from my house and immediately went outside and started hearing the sounds of fireworks everywhere. And I thought, how cool would it have been to be flying back into Los Angeles as the Dodgers won a championship and to get to see all the fireworks from the plane. I'm sure someone's going to have the picture from overhead of all the neighborhoods full of fireworks as we welcome in ESPN MLB analyst and insider Buster Olney, kind enough to join us now and help us put a bow on this World Series. So, Buster, while I was watching fireworks out here, I know you were watching this great thing on as well. Is it hard? Can you pick a favorite moment from what we saw in Game 7 that kind of encapsulates what this series was all about?
Wow. I think probably one moment would be Miguel Rojas's home run to tie the game in the 9th inning. You know, I had spoken to Miguel Rojas coincidentally 2 days before in the Dodger clubhouse, and he was telling me that he has this plan, that he wants to play one more year, and after that he wants to put himself on a path to coach or manage. You know, like he totally understands where he is in this stage in his career. And before Game 6, Dave Roberts says, you know what, with our backs against the wall, with us behind it in the series, I'm going to go with my guy Miggy Rowe, because you can trust him. And he makes these nice defensive plays in Game 6 to help extend the series to a Game 7. And then he hits that home run. And after the game, when I was talking to him, and he's weeping, right, where he's talking about how going into this game, he and his wife had talked about there might be a moment that he's been waiting for his whole career. And that home run that he hit was his first against a right-handed pitcher the entire season. Yeah. And it was Miggy who told me that. Like, he was just shocked that he was in this position. And right in that moment, you know, he joins Aaron Boone and Bucky Dent and all these, those guys who have come up with these improbable moments. And that winds up launching the Dodgers into this back-to-back championship. And you know this, and you knew you were in the 10th inning, 11th inning. Whoever lost this game, it was going to be devastating because of all the moments when if you were on one side, you could have wrapped it up, you could have won it, and all the second guessing they're going to have for the rest of their lives.
Well, I mean, then Ross, the play at second base when everybody's playing in on bases loaded, he's off balance with a throw to Will Smith. Andy Paes put in the center field because of his gun arm, runs over Kike Hernandez and makes an incredible catch. And those were like from reserves, the consistent Yamamoto. How about him? World Series MVP. Just how good was he?
Well, I mean, it's almost unprecedented. You know, it's interesting. In 2001, Randy Johnson threw 105 pitches in Game 6. He beat the Yankees, and he came back the next day, and he threw in relief in the 8th inning and then the 9th inning, and that gave the Diamondbacks a chance to, to walk it off against Mariano Rivera, and they win that World Series. But the idea of someone pitching Game 6 and 7 is unheard of. And to have the highest paid pitcher in the history of baseball take the ball in those situations back-to-back days, you know that while he may have been tired when he took the mound, that the Blue Jays hitters were like, oh no. Because he had been that dominant against them in this series. So that he was so phenomenal. And you love the idea when you get into these games that all the roles go out the window, right? All the stature goes out the window. It's doing everything you can to win a game in that moment. And I mentioned the second guessing that goes on. I did radio in Toronto today, and they're all talking about Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who's this great baseball guy who in that moment when Rojas threw home for that force play made a mistake by not getting enough of a secondary lead. If he gets a secondary lead of another foot, then the Blue Jays are celebrating winning the World Series. That was the game-winning run. That's what made this game the best game that I've ever seen and the best World Series that I've ever seen.
I feel like I've seen that a lot. The TV numbers back all this up, and it feels strange in light of that, Buster, that I do feel like some people are going to pose the question, the Dodgers, their mighty payroll, going back-to-back shades of the late 90s Yankees, of what message this does send to the Major League Baseball, and if this is a thing that's a net negative for fans and markets that can't put up this kind of money. What say you on that?
Especially with the labor situation looming at the end of 2026. The fact that the Dodgers have won back-to-back titles is going to fuel that narrative that there needs to be change. And the big question is, how hard will the owners push for some kind of a salary cap, a salary floor? How much will the union fight that as they get into this? You're 100% right. It's interesting. Someone asked me once or said, will the Dodgers' reliance on starting pitching in this postseason, will that change the way teams think? Will they go back to developing starting pitching and not have the parade of relievers? I'm like, no, this is an outlier situation because the Dodgers have a lot of money. That's real. They spent $1.5 billion effectively on the 4 primary starters in this World Series. That's as much as the Brewers spend over 12 to 15 years, right? So there's no question that there's a disparity. And for fans who are in small markets and mid markets, you understand their angst over it because the playing field hasn't been level, and it really hasn't been since baseball's financial system went into place 125 years ago.
And you mentioned the over $1 billion and then the amount that was deferred. Will that change at all down the road, do you think, being able to defer that much, especially a Shohei amount?
I would be surprised if that becomes a sticking point. Look, there's a lot of things that baseball needs to address in its next labor talk and the conversations among owners. For example, they're going to be talking about expansion at some point. They do need to talk about the preeminence of starting pitchers and getting back to that instead of, 6, 7 relievers in every game. But number one on the list right now has to be the labor situation. Like that is where so much of their energy is going to be devoted. And, we'll see if they actually spend much time talking about the specifics of the deferrals as they move forward.
Is it too early to start talking about a three-peat here with this Dodgers team? Are they set up to just do this again next year?
Absolutely. Shoot. You bring back Yamamoto comes back next year. Now, their course is some of the Dodgers pointed out to me during the World Series that they're playing 7 months versus playing 6 months. And there is a physical toll in that. This year, they had all kinds of injuries with the starting pitching. And maybe next year, they'll have some of that. It wouldn't surprise anybody. But you've got Yamamoto, and you've got Tyler Glasnow, and you have Blake Snell. And, oh, by the way, Shohei Ohtani is going to be 1 more year removed from having the Tommy John surgery. And if they have holes, they've demonstrated this. They will go out in the market and they will sign guys that they feel like give them a better chance to win. Look, the one thing people have to recognize when they say the Dodgers spend their money, Here's the great thing. The ownership has plowed the money back into the team. This is not a case where, the team is playing in the postseason late every year. At the end of the year, you have a miser owner saying, nope, we're not going to spend. We're not going to increase our payroll. They have poured money back into the product that they're putting on the field. And that's great if you're a Dodger fan and you're a customer of that particular company.
Yeah. So the Dodgers will be favored, I'm sure, going into next year. Will Toronto be favored to come out of the American League again? And should they be?
I think they'll be among the favorites because they do have some pitching questions to work through. I mean, Max Scherzer's obviously at the end. Chris Bassin is at the end. Maybe those guys sign. Bo Bichette really increased his marketability with what he did in the World Series, playing through that knee injury, demonstrating to prospective bidders that this is someone who is just incredible skills as a hitter. And I'm sure that the Blue Jays are going to have to bid against other teams to catch him. The good thing is, man, this year the Blue Jays established a perfect anchor in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Look, you guys have been around players in your lifetimes where you see them get the big contract and you don't know how they're going to react, right? You don't know if they're going to be comfortable being the guy. You don't know where the work ethic is going to go. When the Red Sox signed Rafael Devers to that massive $313 million deal, their hope was that he would be the centerpiece of their franchise. And then he's, declined to change positions and it went the other way. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., $500 million contract in the spring, has emerged as this incredible leader, as this remarkable force, as an all-around player, but also in the clubhouse. Before Game 7, I went up to him. I said, man, I'm telling you, I am jealous of you because my last class at Vanderbilt, I took Spanish and I got a D+, and I would love to speak in the second language. You're doing interviews in your second language on national television. Like, he has embraced all of the responsibility that comes with that contract. If you were in the Blue Jays, you're in a great place with Vladdy, and not only as a hitter, as a defender, but also how he clearly has demonstrated he's ready to lead.